How are we doing again? Now we're going to look at one-step inequalities, solve them by either using multiplication or division to solve them. These are, again, very similar to what we've done before with equations, but now we're applying it to inequalities. We solve them the same way, and eventually these two that we see in front of us are exactly the same. This is where the next two that I'll show, that'll be where there is a special rule we have to follow, which is the only difference with inequalities as opposed to solving equations. So, first one I see up here, just the basic solve is I have a 4x, it's less than 12. Well, this time I have my variable alone, but this time I need to make it 1x. So the way I make it 1x is, we know, divide both sides by 4. Now again, I said this is exactly the same as an equation, so nothing else is changing. The only difference, all I do right now is I reduce my 4's, that's 1. So my x, I got 1x. My inequality sign, less than, can drop down. And then 12 divided by 4 is 3. Pretty simple. Exactly the same as what we've done before. And yes, I could go through and graph that, but today is more of a lesson in solving these ones with multiplication and division. Second one. Now in this case, p is over 5, so technically p is divided by 5. So in this case, I need to multiply both sides. In this time, I need to multiply both sides by 5. So multiply my left side by 5 over 1, and the right side by 5. Now, the 5 over 1, I do that on the left side because that allows me to cross-reduce my 5's. You get 1 and 1, so therefore I did get 1p greater than or equal to, because that's still dropping in the exact same way we've done before, and now it's just negative 4 times 5 is a negative 20. So as you see, those two are exactly the same because it does not actually touch on our rule. There's one key rule for solving inequalities that makes it different from solving equations. That rule is this right here. That any time when you are either dividing or you are multiplying, and this is why I underlined this here and made it nice and yellow, by a negative number, you have to flip the inequality sign in the opposite direction. Now that is by rule. I'm going to show you why that actually is true. Here's one thing to note. What a lot of kids get confused with is they think that just because your answer is negative, that flips an inequality sign. Well, that's not really the case. It has nothing to do with what your solution is here. It has to do with the number that you are multiplying by. In this case, I'm multiplying by positive 5. Well, that's not a negative number, so therefore, I don't flip my sign. Over here, we divided by 4. That's not a negative number, so I'm not flipping my inequality sign. So hopefully that makes a little more sense. This is why it happens. I'll show you in one of these examples up here. I'll show you in the left example, because if we really wanted to, if I really wanted to, I could add 2t to both sides. This is something, if you want to copy down for your notes, you may. You don't have to. I just want you to watch and listen. Now, if I do that, I'm putting my variable on the right side, which means negative 2t plus 2t is actually 0. So 0 has to hold that place over here on the left-hand side. My inequality sign drops down exactly the same because I'm not dividing by a negative number. And on the right side, I have, unlike terms, I have 8 and 2t. So I have to just make that 8 plus 2t. From here, when I put my variable on the right side, that means I have to take this 8 and move it to the left side. So from there, I subtract 8 from both sides because I'm trying to get this 2t plus 0. And I have that now because 2t is now on the one side and negative 8 is on the other side. And from here, obviously, we just divide by 2. So therefore, I have negative 4. And because this 2 is not a negative number, my inequality sign is still facing t. Okay? Now, I took that a very long-winded approach for this reason. How would I write this, though? By rule that we also have, we always write our inequality with our variable first. So if I put t first, that means t is now greater than or equal to negative 4. Now, that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps maybe, 4 or 5 steps. I would much rather work with a rule and just remember that one simple rule and get this a lot quicker. So watch this. Remember, t greater than or equal to negative 4. I'm going to keep that there. I'm going to go back to the original problem. Because we know to get this to be 1t, we could just divide both sides by negative 2 right here. Now watch this. Negative 2 divided by negative 2, we know that's 1. We dropped our t down. 8 divided by negative 2. We know that is a negative 4. And here's the trick. Watch this. Remember this little thing in yellow right here? Watch this. If I'm dividing, and this is dividing by a negative number, what does this inequality sign have to do by rule? It must flip and go the opposite way. So now t is no longer less than or equal to negative 4. T is now greater than or equal to negative 4. And by the way, exact same as what I did with that 4-step method. So that to me makes life a lot simpler. Just by abiding by one simple rule, it's one different change, now I've made life 1 step versus 4. Same thing applies to the next one over here. So in this case, now I'm dividing n by negative 4, so to get it to be a 1n, I have to multiply by negative 4. And I multiply the right side by negative 4 as well. Now again, am I multiplying by a negative number? Yes. It has nothing to do, again, it has nothing to do with what our answer is. It's if you multiply both sides or divide both sides by this negative number. Well, in this case, negative 4 divided by negative 4 is 1. N drops down. That's still the same. 12 times negative 4 is negative 48. That's no different than what we've done before, but because these were negative numbers, this inequality sign now flips. It's no longer n is greater than, n is now less than negative 48. So now you're going to go into the Google form. Your code word for today is this word right here, all lowercase. It is flip. That is your password for the next Google form. So good luck and do the best you can on it.